everyone, welcome back to my class. This is Mehjabin Fatima, a teacher at Elizabeth High School and Junior College. Till now we have completed 12th chapter in social studies, and today we are going towards our 13th chapter, that is the Kings of Vijayanagara. Now let's begin with our chapter. So in the previous chapter we read about warriors and chiefs who had established control over villages and how the Kakatiyas tried to bring them under their control and build the kingdom. The efforts of the Kakatiyas ended with the Delhi when the Delhi Sultans conquered Varangal. But soon another kingdom was built by a family of warriors who laid the foundations of a large empire called Vijayanagara or Karnataka. So in the previous chapter we have learned about the warriors and chiefs who had established and controlled several villages and how the Kakatiyas they have bring them down and they build their own kingdom. And after Kakatiyas there were Delhi Sultans who conquered Varangal, and but soon we can see that this kingdom was built by the family of warriors who laid the foundation. But soon we saw that another kingdom was built by a family of warriors who laid the foundations of empires called Vijayanagara or Karnataka. So in this chapter we are going to see about another kingdom who laid their foundation of a large empire, that is Vijayanagara or Karnataka. Vijayanagara means the city of victory. It was located on the banks of Tungabhadra river in Karnataka. According to history, it was founded by two brothers named Harihara Raya and Bukka Raya around 1336 CE with the blessings of a sage named Vidyaranya. The kings of Vijayanagara worshipped Sri Virupaksha. The Vijayanagara empire lasted for about 300 years. It was 300 years, though it was not ruled by kings of the same family but the family of Harihara Raya and Bukka Raya of Sangana dynasty, that is Saluva. Tuluva and Araviti families ruled the empire one after the another. Some of those kings spoke the language Kannada, but Sri Krishna Devaraya gave due importance of Telugu language. So Vijayanagara basically means it's a city of a victory, and it was located on the banks of Tungabhadra river, that is in Karnataka. And according to the history, this city was found by two brothers named Harihara Raya and Bukka Raya around 1336 CE with the blessings of a sage called Vidyaranya and the kings. And that time the kings of Vijayanagara, they used to worship Sri Virupaksha, and the Vijayanagara empire, it was lasted for about 300 years, though it was not ruled by the king of the same family but the family of Harihara Raya and Bukka Raya of Sangana dynasty. Salva, Taruva and Ariviti families, they ruled over this empire one after the another. At that time these kings, they used to speak the language of Kannada, but Sri Krishna Devaraya gave the importance to the language of Telugu. So when we will see on the north side of this Tungabhadra river, some new kingdoms called Bahamani kingdoms, they have been arose, and initially it was one large kingdom with its capital in Gulbarga. Later on, between 1489 and 1520 CE, it broke up into 5 smaller kingdoms. So before that initially it was one large kingdom with its capital in Gulbarga, but later on it has been divided into, of these 5 kingdoms, Bijapur and Golconda ruled over the large parts of the present day Karnataka, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. These kingdoms were ruled by sultans and warriors, many of whom came from Iran and Arabia. All these kingdoms are constantly at war with each other, trying to enlarge their own kingdoms. They also tried to recruit the local warriors and chiefs about whom we read in the last chapter. With their help, they tried to establish control over the villages and towns and collect revenue from the farmers and traders. So these kingdoms, they were ruled by the sultans and warriors, and many of whom they came from this Iran and Arabia. So all these kingdoms, they were constantly at war, we can say, and they were trying to enlarge their own kingdoms, and they also tried to recruit the local warriors and chiefs about whom we have read in our last chapter, and with their help they tried to establish control over the villages and towns and collect revenue from the farmers and the traders. Let's see how do we know about Vijayanagara. So we know much about Vijayanagara empire from inscriptions, books and buildings of that period. We get insights into the daily life, the administration and social organization of the kingdom. Of particularly value are the detailed accounts left by travelers, from several countries. So we found out about this city, that is Vijayanagara, through the inscriptions, books and buildings of that period, and we get insight into the daily life, the administration and the social organization of the particular kingdom from the detailed accounts which are left by the travelers from the several countries. Niccolo Conti from Italy, who visited Vijayanagara in 1420 CE, Abdul Razzaq, the Persian trader, who visited in 1443 CE, the Portuguese traveler Domingo Pis, who visited in 1520 CE, and Nuis, who wrote in 1537 CE. So, with the help of these travelers, we found out about the city, that is Vijayanagara. They have given us the inscriptions and they have written several books. Let's learn about the city of Vijayanagara. The city of Vijayanagara was built on the banks of the river Tungabhadra next to the ancient temples of Pampa Devi and Sri Virupaksha. Abdul Razzaq says that the city had 7 rings of fortifications. Some of these have been found by archaeologists. So, this city of Vijayanagara, it was built on the banks of the river Tungabhadra, and next to it, it is having ancient temples of Pampa Devi and Sri Virupakshi, we can say. And Abdul Razzaq, he said that this city has the 7 rings of fortifications, and some of these have been found out by the archaeologists during their excavations. So, there is a small description given here of the city by a Portuguese traveler. Let's see that description. The king has made a very strong city fortified with walls and towers. These walls are not made like those of other cities, but are made of strong masonry, and inside strong masonry, and inside very beautiful rows of buildings with flat roofs. So, here this Portuguese traveler, he is praising this city, that the king of this city, he made the city very strong with the fortified walls and towers, and these walls, they are not made like those of other cities, but they are different from other cities. These walls, they are very strong, and inside very beautiful rows of buildings, and it is having a flat roofs. You have a broad and beautiful street full of the houses, and these houses belong to merchants, and there you find all sorts of rubies and diamonds and emeralds and pearls, and clothes of every sort on the earth. In the evening you have a fair where they sell horses, vegetables, fruits, woods, etc. So, he is again praising that you have a broad and beautiful street with a full of fine houses, that is full of houses, he wants to say, and these houses, they belong to the merchants, and there you can find all sorts of gems like rubies, diamonds, emeralds and pearls. Means there will be shops on the streets of these gems, and the clothes of every sort of the earth. You can find the clothes of different varieties over there, and in the evening you can have a fair where they used to sell the horses, vegetables, fruits, wood, etc. So, this was about the praising of Vijayanagara by the Portuguese traveller. Now, let's see about the armies and military leaders. You would have heard and read about great wars being fought today, and also about the powerful armies. Let us find out how it was in Vijayanagara times. So, in today's time, we can see that there are different fightings and there are different powerful armies. But let's see about the army, how it was at the time of Vijayanagara. Vijayanagara rulers invested a lot of money in building their military power. They imported a large number of horses from Arabia and Iran, which came in ships and their ports on the west coast. They recruited a large army and built many strong forts. One of the important rulers, Devaraya II of Vijayanagara, started recruiting Muslim fighters to serve him and to train his soldiers in a new modes of warfare. He also permitted the construction of mosques in the capital city where the Muslim soldiers were garrisoned. In those days, guns and cannons had been newly introduced. So, Vijayanagara rulers, they have invested a lot of money for building their military power, and they have imported a large number of horses from Arabia and Iran, which came by the ships and their ports on the west coast, and they have recruited a large army and built many strong forts. And one of the important rulers, that is Devaraya II, he started recruiting Muslim fighters to serve him and to give training to his soldiers who are in the new modes of warfare. And he also permitted to construct the mosques in the capital city where the Muslim soldiers, and at that time these guns and cannons were the newly introduced. were newly introduced, and at that time these guns and cannons were newly introduced, so the kings of Vijayanagara, they started using such weapons. Combination of firearms and cavalry made them one of the most powerful armies in India. So there was a combination of firearms and cavalry, that is horse riders, so this made them most powerful army in our country, that is India. Let's see about the captains of the troop, that is the Amara Nayakas. The entire kingdoms was actually controlled and administered by the commanders of these armies. Let us find out who they were and what they did. Read the following account left by Domingo Paez about Vijayanagara during Krishna Devaraya's period. So this entire kingdom, it was actually controlled and administered by the commanders of the armies. And let's find out more about these armies and what they did. And let's read about the account which is left by Domingo Paez about the Vijayanagara during the time of Krishna Devaraya's period. The king has 1,000,000 fighting troops, which include 35,000 cavalry ready to be dispatched to any court whenever necessary. He is the most feared king in these parts. So this king, he was having million of fighting troops, which includes 35,000 persons with cavalry. Means these persons, they were having the weapons, and there were the horse riders, and they were ready to be dispatched to any quarter whenever it is necessary for them. So this king, he is the most feared king in these parts. The captains of these troops are the nobles of his kings, and they hold the city, the towns and villages of the kingdom. There are captains among them who have a revenue of about 1,000,000 gold coins, others 200, 300 or 500,000 coins. The king fixes for each, according to his revenue, the number of troops which he must maintain on foot, on horse and elephants. These troops are always ready for duty whenever and wherever they may have to go. Besides maintaining these troops, each captain has to make his annual payment to the kings. So the captain of these troops, they are the nobles of this kingdom, and they hold the city, towns and the villages of that kingdom. And there are captains among them who have a revenue about 1,000,000 of gold coins, and others were having 100, 200, like 500 coins. And the king, he used to fix the price for each, and according to the revenue and the number of the troops he must maintain on foot, on horse and on elephants. And these troops, they are ready to be dispatched whenever it is necessary for them. And besides maintaining these troops, each captain has to make his annual payment to the king. Besides the troops supplied by the king, supplied by the captains, the king has his own troops whom he pays. So besides these troops, again the king is having another troops which he only owns and he only will pay. So the captains which were mentioned over here, they are the Nayakas. These Nayakas held Amara revenue assignments. That is, they were given charge of some villages and cities. Those revenue they could collect and use. They had an obligation to maintain a certain number of troops for keeping the revenue of such assignment. They also administered the areas under their control. They had judicial powers too. This was quite similar to the system of the Delhi Sultanate, whose nobles or amirs were given similar revenue assignments called tas. So these captains, they were the Nayakas, and these Nayakas, they used to hold the Amara revenue assignments, and that is, they were given the charge of some villages and cities whose revenue they could collect and they could use. They had an obligation to maintain certain number of troops for keeping the revenue of such assignments, and they have also administered the areas under their control. And most of these Amara Nayakas were the Telugu warriors, and they have recruited their soldiers usually from among their own villages and kinsmen, and they have trained them. These armies were loyal to the Nayakas rather than to the kings. Many powerful Nayakas like Saluva, Narasimha or Narasa Nayaka controlled vast areas and at times could even challenge the Vijayanagara kings. In fact, some of them were so powerful that when a king died, they took control of power in their own hands and themselves became. So these soldiers or Nayakas were so much powerful that sometimes so these armies, they were so loyal to these Nayakas, and sometimes these Nayakas, they were too powerful that they can even challenge the Vijayanagara kings, and after they died, some of them, they took over the kingdom of that particular king. Let's see about Krishnadevaraya, who is the ruler. Krishnadevaraya ruled from 1509 CE to 1529 CE. He was a great general who led the Vijayanagara army successfully against the Bahmani sultans and also against the Gajapatis of Odisha. He also subdued several chiefs who had revolted in Karnataka, Andhra and Tamil regions. This gave him control over the entire region on the south of the river Krishna and especially the control over the ports of the eastern coast. So this Vijayanagara, he was a ruler and he ruled since 1509 CE to 1529 CE, and he led the Vijayanagara's armies successfully against the Bahmani sultans and also against the Gajapatis of the Odisha, and he subdued several chiefs who had revolted against the Karnataka, Andhra and Tamil regions. So this gave him control over the entire region, and he also controls the ports of the eastern coast. During this period, the Portuguese had established their power over some ports of the western coast like Goa. Krishnadevaraya established friendly relationship with them in order to give exclusive supply of horses and firearms from them. He also employed Portuguese troops in his wars. So at that time the Portuguese, they were establishing their power over some parts of the western coast like the Goa, and the Krishnadevaraya built a friendly relation with them, and he ordered to get exclusive supply of the horses and firearms from them. He also employed some of the Portuguese in his wars. Next year on the Vijayadashami day, the king organized elaborate festives and worships which concluded with a massive parade of his armies. On this day, all the chiefs and Amaranayakas of the empire brought their tributes to the king. So every year Vijayadashami day, he used to celebrate some festives and parade of his armies, and on that day the chiefs of the Amaranayakas of the empire, they used to bring the tribute to the king. And this ruler Krishnadevaraya, he paid special attention to the temples of the kingdom, and personally he has visited all of them. Some of the names are given here. Let's see, like Tirupati, Srisailam and Ahobilam. He also donated a large number of temples. So in such way he has donated a large number of temples. Continue.